One. Hello and welcome to NJBIZ Conversations. I'm your host, Jeff Kanige. Joining me today is Carley Garcia, the Executive Director of the Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation at Montclair State University. Carley, welcome.
Good morning. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my pleasure. I know you're at the lab, and I like we can see it in the background, and the Montclair Innovation Lab, I should say. You had the big event this week, the grand opening of the Montclair Innovation Lab. That's where you are now. What is it, and what was the genesis?
Great. Thanks for asking. And I'm excited to give you all a tour. So for years, Montclair State University, prior to my joining last September, has been thinking about having some sort of downtown presence in Montclair. As those of you know who visited the campus, it is nestled away from the business districts of Montclair proper.
Right.
So over the years, they've thought about it. And what my team proposed earlier this year was to open an off-campus incubator, which would basically scale the efforts of the Center for Entrepreneurship and bring it into the entrepreneurial community of Montclair. So earlier, right as COVID was hitting in March, we got the keys to about a 1,200 square foot space that I'm sitting in right now at 10 Lackawanna Plaza. And we are working on standing up a variety of activities. Pre-COVID, we had planned to focus on 3 core competencies of the Feliciano Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. One was scaling some of our 3D printing efforts. We have curriculum where students use 3D printers for prototyping and sort of, design thinking for made objects, and also just kind of to learn the skills of entrepreneurship and innovation. The second thing we had planned to do here was co-working, where this space is not only open to just student startups, but also community startups. And our location here in downtown Montclair was very intentional. There's a huge creative community around us. There are a lot of folks who run their businesses in New York City, but maybe work in Montclair 1 or 2 days a week. We were really excited to sit shoulder to shoulder. So we still have hope for that, but there are portions of that we're able to do now, which I'll tell you about later.
Yes.
The third thing that we plan to do here is retail pop-ups. So later, when I tour you around, don't want to get you dizzy quite yet, we have a point of sale, a retail kiosk that's actually on the ground level of our space at 10 Lackawanna Plaza, nestled within sort of this retail district. At one end of us is Bloomfield Avenue with lots of shops and restaurants. At the other end of us is a YMCA and other community organizations. So this is a great place for student startups, community startups to try having a retail presence. They don't necessarily have to have made objects. They could have an app that they want to demo and do some sort of launch party here, which we're excited to support. The last thing I'll mention is, during this moment of COVID, we are fearful that a lot of our small businesses will lose their retail spaces. So we've been partnering with the Montclair BID, the Business Improvement District, and others to be able to make this space available to established entrepreneurs who may have had a retail presence that, God forbid, lose it. We're hopeful that they'll want to partner with us and potentially pop up here.
Okay, so it sounds this is not a traditional incubator that you might see where you just have startups working together with coaches or seasoned executives, that kind of. There's a lot more going on.
So it will be that. That will be one component, though.
Okay.
Really, we wanted this to be an off-campus extension of the sort of capabilities of Montclair State. We will have lectures by faculty. We actually have one this afternoon at 2 p.m. With Dr. Ross Malaga, who's talking about a wicked problem, which really is, the moment we're in is a wicked problem for a lot of small businesses.
Right.
So there will be mentors. We have a stellar executive in residence, or entrepreneur in residence, at the Feliciano Center, named Karen Kahn, who is the president and founder of I Fund Women, which is a crowdfunding and venture capital platform that invests in early stage female founded businesses. She is a liaison to us. Her team has been mentoring our students. She is somebody who will have a presence here, as well as our other mentors, but it's more than just a traditional incubator.
Right. Okay. I think you said you secured the space in March. Is that right?
Correct. We technically opened our doors in March, and I actually was here St. Patrick's Day,
Okay.
getting stuff ready. And it was really sort of, as you remember, one of the last days that we were all kind of together.
Right.
What we decided to do, since the space was done but vacant, was actually flip it to be a bit of a small scale manufacturing facility for PPE, personal protective equipment.
Right.
And our team from our mix lab led a community effort with an organization called Design Shed that runs Montclair Design Week. And a whole host of volunteers. We had over 200 volunteers who came into the space safely, socially distanced, over an 8-week period. They produced 30,000 face shields from the space that I'm sitting in.
Very impressive.
And donated them to over 60 hospitals and healthcare systems, nursing homes, and other frontline workers. So in the time that we really couldn't be together, we had this going on in the background, which I think was a great use of the space, great use of us being able to support the community. We ended up actually sunsetting that around Memorial Day. And flipping the space to really support small businesses, which we had kind of started doing in a series of webinars with some partners when COVID hit. And then now that we're open, we're hopeful that we'll get a chance to do these eventually in person, or this space at Lackawanna Plaza is actually across from a public park. Right. So one of our objectives is to do stuff in the park, because people are sort of, you know, no offense, we're on Zoom. People are a little tired of Zoom.
Yes. Yes, people are tired of Zoom. I'm curious about your view of the effect that the pandemic has had on entrepreneurs. I mean, you mentioned some of the effects on retails. I'm assuming in Montclair. In general, what do you think? How have entrepreneurs been able to handle what's been going on? I mean, the effects generally have been devastating for a lot of businesses. What do you think the small entrepreneur has been going through? Yeah,
it really has been. Well, we learned a lot. We had about 400 participants in these small business and entrepreneurial calls around COVID relief efforts across a 6-week period. And we talked about things like state and federal aid. So we learned how entrepreneurs, if they were eligible, could apply. We talked a lot through that. Things like rent and overhead. You know, some entrepreneurs don't have the cost of a physical, office space. Some do, right? And sort of what that meant. We talked extensively about PPP. I know many, of course, want to figure out sort of, what does business continuity look like? How can I keep my staff? How can we work remotely? How can we continue to serve customers? One of the smartest pieces of advice that actually came through one of those sessions that we ran, which by the way, were called Montclair Mondays, with a few of our community partners, was this notion of, even though you can't work in your business right now, you can work on your business. And I actually thought that was really great advice for entrepreneurs. So we've been kind of talking a lot about that in this moment where maybe customer discovery is harder. Certainly sort of acquiring new customers is harder, but are there things that you can be doing to think about sort of strategic development of the business, that you're working on right now that you can kind of hone in on? But the larger macro issue is really funding. And there's been a lot of sort of different articles, I would say, on how, the dire state of venture capital right now for entrepreneurs and how belts are tightening and it's going to be harder for, early stage businesses to secure funding. And then there seems to have been, there seems to be sort of equally, in the other direction, articles around this actually could be a good moment to get investors' attention. If you have a really great, really innovative business idea, that people are interested and do have the time and ability to meet in a lot of ways, just because we're not traveling, so they do have the opportunity to connect. So I've heard sort of differing things. I think one thing we've seen, the Feliciano Center has had a special focus on female founders and women entrepreneurs. We know that women are underfunded, and so and we also know that minority business owners are underfunded. So in this moment, I think, unfortunately, a lot of those categories of founders who traditionally get less funding are probably hurting more. And there's been a fair amount of writing around that as well.
Yes. Yeah.
So it's across the board.
Yes, unfortunately. So do you want to show us around a little bit?
I'd love to. Thank you. So let me bring you to the front. And actually what I'm going to do, this is sort of the perfect spot to at least begin to show you sort of the depth of the space. So as I mentioned, we're 10 Lackawanna Plaza. So behind me there, in the back corner, there's sort of a bright box. That is actually a 3D printer, an Ultimaker that we brought from campus. On campus, we have a fleet of about 50 of them, and our students are using them regularly. They hum through the night, printing and prototyping different things that people are developing.
Okay.
Here, this is actually not for communal use. Originally, we had thought we would have pilot programs with partners like the YMCA and others to actually teach 3D printing, and we will do that, but we can't do it safely yet. So for right now, our winning team from our pitch competition this spring,
which I'm going to ask you about in a minute.
yes, they are using that because they are printing and prototyping for their business, Dr. Floss. Behind me here is actually a green screen, which interestingly is popping up white on my camera, and maybe you're seeing it too.
No, it's white. It looks white.
Okay, so it is a bright green screen. And the thought here was so many of our partners in the community and also entrepreneurs and other news platforms were shifting virtual. And so we thought, could we help our entrepreneurs and could we help small businesses by actually having a pretty high quality green screen so that people could professionalize their virtual content. So I've been broadcasting from that space. This afternoon's lecture is going to be broadcast from that space. We did Montclair Mondays earlier this week from that space. But really, we are hopeful that it will be a community resource when people are feeling more comfortable to come in here not wearing a mask. I've kept my mask off. We are empty in this space this morning, but largely we're wearing masks in here, and we're only about 5 people at a time. And then, so let me just quickly tour you around. So one way that we debuted, you'll see this art on the walls behind me. Through this work that we've been doing with small businesses, we actually have had a photography exhibit that is done by a local business owner. She's also a Montclair State alumna who took portraits of small business owners serving customers. And you're seeing a little bit of the back here, and I'm going to bring you up there in a minute. But she took this incredible portrait series, and this is probably the best way to show it, of business owners in our community serving customers in this moment. One of the things you sort of alluded to before, Jeff, and it's something that we've been talking a lot about, is how do you actually pivot your business model now to address customer needs? And that goes back to funding, right? One of the things I've heard from VCs is businesses that are demonstrating that they can do that and how they're going to do it are the ones that are securing additional funding. People want to hear about those innovative ideas. So, and actually from this space here, I recently interviewed a founder who literally had completely changed her business model, and she's been able to secure additional funding. So let me just move us quickly to the front of the space. It's not huge, but it's actually multi-level. So here at the front, you'll see you're viewing outside to Lackawanna Plaza in Montclair. Across the street is Crane Park. We have sort of a 2-level handicap accessibility kind of retail spot at the front. And this is where people can walk off the street and engage with us. So let me just quickly come over here and show you our point of sale. And actually my colleague Liz Rich has arrived. So Liz is standing right now in our business pop-up. So earlier this week during our debut, one of our winning teams from our pitch competition, Solo's Food, popped up here. And they're a business that actually had 5 or 6 menu items that they wanted to sell for the first time. Their whole business concept is around organic meals that are, and they focus on home delivery. So they originally started targeting lower income neighborhoods in Newark that didn't have good meal options. And even pre-COVID said, what we need to do for this business is actually have home delivery. So they had, 5 or 6 menu items, and we're selling here during our launch, sold their entire inventory. Food was delicious. And this is a space that we are excited to let folks use, whether they be students or community startups.
So
that's
great.
us.
Yes. Well, thank you for the tour. Just before I let you go, I did want to talk a little bit about the pitch contest, because that was what we talked about the last time we spoke, by old-fashioned phone. And I talked to some of the winners, the big winners, the first place winners, and they were all excited about having won, obviously, because there's a cash prize attached to it, but also about the prospect of being able to use resources like the Innovation Lab and all the other all the other things that your center can bring to entrepreneurs. So give me your pitch for the pitch contest.
Yes. So we pivoted this year. As you know, we moved everything virtual, and our
Right.
pitch for the pitch contest is a couple of different. Well, it's a couple of different thoughts, but I'll try to wrap it into one theme. It really is about supporting this next generation of kind of the innovation economy in New Jersey.
Right.
So first and foremost, on a university campus, our pitch competition is meant to provide seed funding for student startups. And we added a category this year to fund female founders. So one team had to be at least over 50% female. And so we had an additional prize there. The other thing we thought about was, and it's really kind of the ethos of this space, we want to highlight and bring together with our student startups, community startups. So people who are building amazing things, not necessarily do they have to be, businesses that will have roots. Well, they have roots in Montclair. They don't necessarily have to have a retail presence in Montclair, but there's so many people in New Jersey who are doing incredible things that can help teach our students. And so we added a community prize. And the way that we basically defined this community prize is you had to have either a business or residence that had an address in either Montclair, Clifton, or Little Falls. And so our winner was a business called Roncero Reiki, which our judges felt like had an incredible platform right now with the practice of Reiki, helping kids essentially get through sort of stress management in this moment. But we had a really interesting honorable mention. So our sort of second place to the community prize was a business called Vet News, which is the brainchild of a Montclair resident, Paul Glatter, and also his partner, Peter Freeby. And it's basically, Paul is an ex-Wall Street Journal journalist, and he sort of said, news platforms need a way to better integrate corrections into their content management systems. So Paul and Peter have developed a block of code that actually a news site can drop on its content management system, such that a reporter can see when there's a correction needed to a story. And so this is, really much more kind of AI-enabled tech, juxtaposed with a business like a Solo's Food. They're both relevant in this climate. They are totally different businesses. Right. But we do think that there's a lot that our students can learn from folks like, Paul and Peter, and vice versa, that they can learn from us. So that's the competition. Okay.
Sounds good. You mentioned the lab is open to the public. If someone wanted to avail themselves of your services, what do they need to do? Just show up or give a call or?
Yeah, so the best way to find us, montclairinnovationlab.com. Okay. It will link to all of our resources. As of right now for the summer, we are open Monday through Thursday, 10 to 4. We are testing to see sort of folks' comfort level to come in and meet us and see the space. We still have the exhibit up. It will be up through August. We ask that you wear a mask. We will limit the number of people in the space to about 5 or 6. But that is the best way to reach us. If you are interested in scheduling time with us, either outside those time blocks, or you're interested in a retail pop-up that you want to talk with us about, the best way to get in touch is entrepreneurs, plural, @montclair.edu.
Okay, very good. Well, Carley Graham Garcia, thank you very much for spending time with us. I really appreciate it. And thank you all for watching. Until next time, stay safe, everyone.
Thanks, Jeff.